This is Change the Brain, conversations without limitations.
Welcome to Around the Mic with Sir Charles. You'll hear this broadcast either on the podcast, Around the Mic, or on my social media page, Change the Brain, Conversations Without Limitations. You know, it's not just about me, so you'll hear information from different speakers, trainers, coaches, and authors, all for you. So get your pad, your note paper, if possible, so that you can take copious notes on how you can also become better, the best version of you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sir Charles Carey, Peak Performance Strategist, and I have an opportunity of sharing some information with you that I'm pretty sure you've never heard before. This gentleman and I, we go back a little ways. I mean, it seems like we always kept crossing paths on different platforms, conferences and workshops and even sometimes social platforms. And you just never know where your future will take you. And if you're listening to this in real time or even on the real replay, I want you to share with other people. Tell everyone, tell us, as they say, tell Lottie, Dottie, and every daggone body about what you heard, because I'm proud to present to some and introduce to others my good friend, Mr. Reginald Williams. Reg, what's going on, man?
Sir Charles, man, how are you doing today, man? Thank you for having me.
Man, I'm grateful. I'll be honest with you. Even in the midst of this pandemic, which whoever thinks that they would live through or experience a pandemic, I can still say that I'm grateful, man.
Absolutely.
How have you been maintaining?
Man, it for me is I was talking to someone earlier today, and if we, I know we can't take it away, but if we take away the senseless deaths and the people who have had to deal with these deaths and the way some of these people have died, this is I've prospered in this, in the sense this is a way to re-energize yourself and to, I talk about, I grew up on a farm, so this is like an opportunity to re-till the ground so that you can grow new things. So I'm introverted for one, but two, I just been able to sit down, focus, and do some things I hadn't done before because I was busy doing everything else. So it's good for me. Yeah.
Wow, man. I know you're in the mental health field, and I have a combination of mental health experience, as well as I was on the other side of mental health, as well as now as a peak performance strategist. My job sort of is to lead people to where they are supposed to be, or help them find their destination to some degree. And it's amazing that your work and my work, although they're sort of in different lanes, they still coincide. And I hear that you have written a book recently, so I want to find out a little bit more about your book. I want to find out at some point later in the talk, where people can get it, and really what's the big deal about this book. Can you tell us the title of the book and when did it come out?
The book is entitled A Marginalized Voice. Ooh. And it came out on March 19th. And the reason why I chose March 19th as my date is because that's the date of my grandfather, the date of my father was born. So I honored my father by giving him this gift on his birthday, although he has transitioned. Yeah, and it's funny because my initial book tour, my first book signing, was initially set for Philadelphia on the March 21st.
Okay.
And Philadelphia had gone way out to make me comfortable and make this book signing everything it was. And I ended up going to bed and waking up the next day, Charles, and saying something is not right about this book signing. And what I came up with was, there's nothing wrong with the book signing. You need to move it back. So your first book signing has to be in the hometown where your father was born. So I honored him by having it on March 19th, and the book signing was going to be on March 21st in this hometown. Unfortunately, I didn't get to do this because of COVID-19.
I can relate. I remember my second book, Courage Facing Mortality. I'm a New Yorker, so I went back to New York it was part of the book tour I was doing. And several of my alumni came out, a couple of family members, and it's nothing like taking it back to the essence of where everything began.
Absolutely.
In its inception, and it was a warm feeling. I felt comfortable. They received me with love. So, man, but I hope that you're still able to, in some way, get that book tour and your book signings together so that, you know, you can get this information out to the masses. Now, I love the title. I think that title is very profound. A marginalized voice. Because I think for a lot of us, not just men, but African Americans, and even some of the quote unquote disenfranchised people of the world today, we are the ones with that marginalized voice.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about the book. Is this book a solution for us, or how do you see it?
Before I get to that, I have to commend you on what you said. Like, there are a lot of marginalized groups, man. Women are marginalized, you know, immigrants are marginalized, the LGBTQ community is marginalized, disabled folks are marginalized. So there's a lot of marginalized people in the world. But I specifically was speaking to marginalized Black boys, because Black boys, our voice is just, you know, we're not allowed to be heard. And I bring that up. I had a situation not too long ago. Oftentimes I'm in meetings, and a lot of the meetings I'm in, I'm usually one of very few men in the meetings. A lot of times I'm in meetings with a lot of PhDs or clinicians.
Right.
And after this particular meeting, which I was the only man, and I was the only one who was not a clinician or a PhD, after the meeting was over, one of the persons that I work with, who is a PhD, well respected, we work well together, she said, you know, you have an authoritarian voice and it makes people uncomfortable. And I'm like, wow, so what am I supposed to do? Just be quiet, you know?
Right.
So, and so oftentimes we're not allowed this opportunity to speak. And it starts in boyhood where, you know, the first thing we're taught is that big boys don't cry.
Yeah. I got a strong article about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in essence, what you're saying, you're telling me when I hurt, I can't cry. So therefore I must lie to myself. I must compress what it is I truly feel and not be authentic with who I am. And with all that said, I forgot what your question was, Charles.
No, but you know, that is still good. I think you're going to come back around to it, because my question to you is, the person that asked you that, what was their persuasion? African-American or?
African-American, yeah.
Now, I would think, now, of course, everybody doesn't know everything. I know that. But I would think that that person would have an understanding of that, the plight you may endure, or the plight of males, African-American males, because of that. Because I can identify with it. Sometimes I'm made to feel like people are looking at me in a certain way because of my presence, how I present myself. And it's similar. You speak with authority and you have an authoritative presence. And if you have that authoritative presence, it should be heard. But I can't, for the life of me, imagine you trying to abuse your authoritative presence. You're just probably passionate, knowledgeable, and this totally in sync with what it is that you believe and what you're trying to convey. And I don't know. I mean, it seems like all the things that we go through as men, young boys, you know, like you say, it's suppressed, and that's a horrible feeling.
It doesn't allow you to be who you authentically are. And usually what happens is like I say, you know, when you say we don't cry, well, there are some of us who may never cry a physical tear, but we are crying. And so what happens is when you come home at 6 o'clock and you turn on the news and you hear about this young king, and in the book, I call them young kings because we have to call them what God made them to be, even if they're not acting in that manner. But if you turn on your TV and you see a young king and shot up 7 people, and the first thing you want to do is you want to be upset that he did this, I get it. You know, he's done something that's egregious. But at the same time, this is his cry out. And this is the only way that he knows how to handle his situation, so it becomes violent. And again, I'm not necessarily
praising his behavior.
Sure. But I have to understand the nuances of the behavior so I can get to the point where, why was it necessary for you to take this gun and shoot 7 people? So, we have to understand that if when people are not heard, they're going to act out in some form, fashion, or another. And oftentimes it's not a positive fashion.
And this is why I tell people it's always important. I forget, I think the book, A Line by Design, I talk about the importance of understanding, or at least identifying, personality types. Because every personality type responds to a different stimuli. And with as you say, the young kings that are in our communities, they don't know to think that way. They're basically reacting from suppression, and this suppression is not new. This has been going on since we landed on these shores.
Absolutely.
That's the real deal. And for those of us, again, I was watching on Netflix the Michelle Obama documentary. I forget the title of it. However, she was saying that she wanted to go to Harvard, and I think a teacher told her, "I don't think that's for you." And of course, she went and graduated, and when she did go back to the school, the teacher was no longer there. But the point is, our boys, our men, our young kings don't see a future because their voices are always being stifled. They're being dissuaded from any kind of potential future that doesn't look like athletics or manual labor, blue collar work, and everything is subservient. And that is hurtful. And when you said, you gave that example about the news report, it is hurtful, but it's also hurtful when the way that they are responded to is with crime, with death, with murder, basically. Because it's like, okay, the officer may be wrong, but the boy or the king, he did X, Y, and Z. But that's supposed to justify the officer's behavior. I just can't get that. And it's like, we can't even stand up on the outside and say, hey, can we look into this? They want to look at us like something's wrong with us for asking for an inquiry.
Blaming the person who was murdered for being murdered. That's what we're living through.
Yeah, or even blaming the bystander or the viewer of the incident for asking to look further into the justification of the officer. And I know a lot of times we put ourselves in a bad situation. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about that. But I just can't find a way to reach our brothers so that they can see a different way. Now, I know I've got lots of options, but if they're not open to hear, the options do them no good.
Here's what I find, Charles, right? And I tell this to people all the time, and this is the way I've operated as a professional. It is my responsibility when I'm dealing or working with these young kings, not to attempt to come into a situation and educate them on something. It's my responsibility to come into the situation and hear them first. Because
absolutely.
Remember, they haven't been heard. So now what happens is, if I can hear them and they feel that I'm hearing them, now what happens is we begin to build a rapport, right? And so once I begin to build a rapport, my responsibility is not to tell them what the solution is or tell them how to go, but to suggest ways in which they should go, right? And what happens is oftentimes when they trust you, they'll try it because they trust you. But the first thing is they have to first trust you. See, young kings respond to people who understand their language. They respond to people who will listen to them. And so which goes back to being marginalized. So a lot of times this young king may have done something that I don't agree with, right? And at some point I'm going to tell him I disagree, right? At some point I'm going to say, yo, you know what? Couldn't you have done that another way? But before I do that, the thing is, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. Let me hear you. Oftentimes when guys come into my programs, I never read files. And the reason why I don't read files is because I don't want to make a preconceived notions about what the court system said, because then I may be swayed to believe them. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm sitting down, I'm having a conversation with you. Talk to me, bro.
Right.
What's up, man? You know, the court said you did what? Well, what did you do? How do you feel about what they said? And usually something as simple as that, bro, yeah, man, you know, I did do that, man. But, and I don't care if they say but, and I don't care if they try to justify it. If I can get them to say, yeah, I did that, then I can work with them.
Right. Yeah. What's this dude, Phil McGraw says, he says, look, you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
That's right.
Period.
That's right.
You know, you cannot change what you do not acknowledge.
That's right.
But I want to know a little bit more about your book. So you said it's is or is not a solution-oriented book?
It is not a solution-oriented book.
So what type of book is it?
It's I'm exposing some things that need to be exposed.
Okay.
Oftentimes you hear people say, well, I know what the situation is, or I know what the problem is, man, let's talk about solutions. And I say, no, you do not understand what the situation. How can you solve a problem that you don't quite understand? So what happens is I began to expose some things about practices. There's a medical term called iatrogenic. And iatrogenic is this medical term that says a well-intended person who is trying to do good does harm in the process of trying to do this good. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. I don't know if anybody saw this recent, like an hour documentary on Alex Smith from the Washington Redskins.
Oh, right, yeah.
Project 11.
Mm-hmm.
He hurt his leg, he goes into the hospital, he has surgery for it, right? And he goes home. But in the process, there is a virus inside of his leg that's eating away at his leg. Well, I'm not necessarily saying the doctor did that, but it happened while it was in surgery.
Okay.
So subsequent, or at some, whether at some point it happened as a result of his surgery.
Okay.
So that's an iatrogenic behavior. And so oftentimes what happens is, whether we're talking educators, whether we're talking programs, whether we're talking to church, whether we're talking to anybody, the manner in which they deal with our young kings is they think that they're being very helpful, but oftentimes the help that they're doing is very harmful. And so what happens is I have to first show you this is harmful, right?
Right.
And after I show you that this is what this book is about, let me show you what you think is not harmful. Let me show you that it is harmful. And now once we're able to have a conversation about why it's harmful, then we can begin together to decide how we're going to create solutions to fix that problem.
Now, I know this is probably a crazy question, not that you get it a lot, but this is the reality. How long does it take before you get to the solution side of things? Because it's one thing to talk about the inception of the problem or what has extended the problem, but when do we get to solutions?
For me, that it's not a crazy question. It's a hard question to answer because it could be a case by case basis.
Right.
But it goes back to what you said before. If I can acknowledge
Yes.
that I may have been doing something in the wrong way, then we can get to the solution quicker.
Yeah.
I share this quick story with you. I played college basketball, and the only game I remember in my college career, like vividly, was really the first game. And the reason why I remember the first game is because I had, like, statistically, it's a game that you just dream about. Like, you never have that game.
Okay.
And so we lose the game by 3 points, and I'm feeling good about myself, not because we lost or not because I had a statistically good game, but because I was able to prove to myself I can play at this level.
Right.
So I get into the locker room, and my coach is like just tearing me a new one. You didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't do this, and you didn't do that. You got to remember, I'm 18 years old. So
Okay.
like, what about all the good things I did?
Right.
I don't remember how long it took before I got the lesson, but the lesson was, bruh, if you're not willing to understand and admit what it was that you didn't do, you're never going to improve as a basketball player.
Okay.
I take that with me everywhere I go. I understand that you're credentialed. I understand that you're educated. I understand all these things, but that does not mean that you should not be evaluated. And there should not be a process where we can be even better today than we were yesterday, but not quite as good as we're going to be tomorrow. But if I take the position, I am a clinician, or I am a PhD, or I am whatever, and I don't want to do anything to improve, then we have a problem. And the last thing I'm going to say, to kind of give that point, I did a workshop out in California a couple months ago, back in October. And I did this workshop, and this person came in, and this person was from the LGBTQ community.
Uh-huh.
After it was over, she came up to me like, yo, man, workshop was phenomenal, man. I really learned a lot, right? Well, I ended up going to her. She had a keynote that night. So I went to the keynote that night, and she's a transgender. I went to the keynote that night, and then I went to her workshop the next day. And there was this one quote on this one fact that she had in there, and she said that 63% of the transgenders have to re-educate their therapist on the transition or transgender life.
Yeah,
So,
not surprising.
Yeah. So if I'm a therapist, but I don't understand your conditions, I don't understand who you are, where you come from, I can't identify with your situation. It doesn't matter that I'm certified or that I'm licensed, because I can't help you unless I can identify with you or identify with your situation.
Yeah.
I've never been to prison. You know, I don't know the first thing about being in jail, but I can identify with the clients who come out of it. And I do everything I can to learn about jail so that when I'm having a conversation with them, I can say something of value.
Yeah, man, you know, the professionals, whether they're clinicians or other types of professionals, they have this thing called best practices, and they have to stay up on best practices. They also have continuing education, which they get credits for different classes, courses, and workshops. And as the world evolves, it seems that, you know, a lot of things are opening up, you know, things that were not acceptable today, they're becoming the norm. So it's important for them, if you really want to be a person that helps others, and I always say this about what I do, it's important that if I'm going to help someone, that one thing I need to do, or two things, is be clear, and I need to use language that they can understand. That's one of the most important things. Another thing is being open, clear, open, honest, and direct. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to come down on a person like a ton of bricks, but to be clear is to make sure that they understand what you're saying, to be open-hearted, open-minded, to be truthful, honest, and to be direct. You know, I know everyone, just like the personality types, everyone does not have the ability to do and be all things to all people. The world was not made that way, and I don't think God made us that way. However, you can try and be open to learn and be open to being adjustable or adaptable to each person's scenario based on what their set of circumstances is. And I try to understand. I love people, man. I mean, I'm a professional failure, but
I love that.
But I learn, and I love people, and I know I may never see a person, but once in a lifetime. But we can have a conversation as if we're best friends.
Absolutely.
Because I have nothing to hide. I don't want anything from anyone. There's nothing up my sleeves. And I have the best intentions from that one interaction. You know, when it comes to counseling, which I've done a bit of counseling myself, I do understand sometimes you can be between a rock and a hard place, depending on the motivation of the person you're trying to help.
Absolutely.
They have to want it just as bad as you're able to give it. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna challenge you on something though, right? One of the things in my bio is I call myself I'm a disruptor. So
yeah.
I challenge a lot of thought processes, right? So some of the terms, and you know it because you're in the field. Some of the terms, like you use best practice, and then we have evidence based. There's a couple other ones, and I always say, all right, so best practices based on whose theory, evidence based on whose observation. Because if you create an evidence-based program, right, and everybody on the evidence-based programs looks like somebody other than the people that you're helping, then that means that it's evidence-based off of your perception.
Right.
But never had a conversation with somebody who can give you these nuances. And so I'm always a little leery about you know those terms and those.
That's true.
You can't have a best practice if the people that you're trying to serve haven't sat at the table in some level.
True. I totally agree with that, man. I totally agree with that. Yeah. So now, although your book is talking about how things became the way they are, and it will educate people on, I guess, the inception of the mess that we're looking at or that we're in the midst of, I would look at it as a book of educating based on how we got where we are. Is that correct? Or okay,
pretty much, yes.
So I would assume that even though the book has just been birthed, there's going to be some point you're going to have a companion book that talks about solutions to the things you're speaking to.
All right, so let me see. See the little boy, see my man right there, Black Boy Speak?
Yeah.
And that's the next book coming out.
Nice.
And that's going to get into some solutions. And again, people like yourself, definitely young Black boys. This, I'm trying to get a spectrum of everybody to talk about what do we do to create a platform. One of the things that we have to do, and I say this all the time, Charles, we got to get out of the programs business, and we have to get out of the ministry business. We have to begin to build systems that will support itself as time moves on. And in order to do that, I need to collaborate with, again, folks like yourself, these young Black boys, man, these young kings, as I call them, man, to sit down. Hey, how do we create a system, man, that moves us to the place that we need to be? Because we shouldn't have to, with the brother Ahmad who was shot in Georgia.
Yeah, man.
We shouldn't have to march for that, right?
Yeah.
But we have a system in place to deal with these things. Then, because look, you got to understand this. They didn't arrest the father and son because they saw the video. They arrested them because we saw the video. You see what I'm saying? So had we never seen the video, I'm sure that that father and son, McMichaels, they would still be walking the streets.
Right.
We have to somehow begin to create a platform that begins to run itself, just the way the slavery did. You had slavery, but then we have the 13th Amendment that says all these, if this happens, if that happens, if this happened, so that is the solution. Yeah.
And it's a shame because he wasn't even on duty. And you see the truck there already. It's like they were waiting on something. And it's just a sad state of events, man.
Yes.
But
check this out right quick, Charles. The first chapter of my book.
Okay.
First chapter is the title is called Unwelcome. And it talks about young Black boys not being welcome anywhere in society. And the second chapter is called Trapped. And we're always trapped in situations. You just take his situation. That young brother was not welcomed to have a jog on a Sunday morning. And that young brother was trapped between two trucks and hunted down like an animal.
Yeah, damn. I think I have the answer, honestly, that can change our plight. The only thing is we have to subscribe to the solution. And the answer is simply this: stop buying their stuff. When you take the person's money away from them, you will get their attention. Trust me, you will get their attention. When we start investing in us, Black technology, whether it's social media, whether it's computers, whether it's phones, you start investing in Black stores, food, produce, apparel, period, Black business. You will see the shift because one, enough is never enough. I'm pretty sure we could even get to that stage as a people in business, but Apple never gets enough money. Microsoft never gets enough money. All these corporations and conglomerates, they never get enough money. When they put projections out and they didn't meet the projections, they'll say it's a loss, but it's not like they're really hurting. It's not like they didn't make money. They just did not make as much money. And for them today, that means, oh, wow, we're doing bad, guys. No, it ain't. You still made money. You just didn't make as much. So if we pull the plug on the technology side, on the clothing side, on the entertainment side specifically, you will be surprised at how quickly they will turn their ear and attention to our needs. But we don't seem to have the interest in sticking together to see if that will pan out.
I so agree with you. I know we'll get to the link later on, but a lot of people are asking me, or they ask me, where can I buy the book? Is it?
Yeah, how can people contact you and get the book?
But let me say this right quick. And one of the things they always say is it's on Amazon. And I say, no, I don't want Amazon to get one of my dollars, not one of my dollars. And people are enamored with being able to say, I was an Amazon bestseller. Well, for me, you're giving your power to Amazon when you do this. So what I chose to do was I had an e-commerce platform built so that the money comes straight to me, and that, you know, I do all this, you know, we do all the shipping of the books and everything else. But
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. And so we need to, I got a review from one particular person, and actually it was like really the best review I received. And she wasn't even talking about the book. She says, I'm glad to be able to say I bought a book from somebody Black, and it wasn't on Amazon. And when she said that, I laughed, man. Like, it made me feel good. But that goes to your point. We have to begin, look, and just go to your point and to Tyler Perry's point, we have to build our own tables.
Yes. And
we have to eat off our own plates.
Yeah.
We really do not need the support of someone that tells us that we need them. And so
I agree 100%, because I am an Amazon bestseller, but I have pulled a couple of my books off of Amazon so that I could produce them under my own publishing, bottom line, because number one, yeah, I know I get more visits, more views and all that, and that's great. However, it's like asking for approval to be counted. And that's the same thing I did with my publishing. I'm like, why do I need someone to tell me that I'm good enough to tell my story or to tell a story?
Right. That's right.
I know. I learned how to do it. And now that education you can never take from me.
There you go. So yeah, man. So yeah, we have to, again, we have to build platforms. And one of the things that I'm hoping that happens with the book, in the tours that I had set up prior to COVID-19, was they were like two for one deal. So every city that I would go to, it would be a Friday night and a Saturday night. And Friday night was a barbershop, and Saturday night was either a community center, a recreation center, or a church. And one of the things that I wanted to do as I did the tour was every city that I went to, I wanted to know either the organization or the person who were working with young Black boys, so that I can put together a guide. So if someone says, if Charles calls up and say, hey, Reggie, man, something happened in Detroit to a young brother, man, you know anybody there? I can go to that guy and look, say, hey, yeah, man, call so-and-so up. And then take all those individuals that I have, the information I collected, and then begin to build conferences so that we can create, one, give out information, but also that we can create some dollars. So
yeah,
I'm flying my plane. I'm building my plane as I'm flying it, man.
There you go.
Yeah.
Look, man, I'm hoping that honestly, a lot comes out of this for you. You get the attention that you need for people to be educated, because I believe the same way. A lot of times people don't want to talk about the past, or they don't want to talk about what has happened. They just want to move forward. But the truth of the matter is, like you say, before you move forward, you need to know what happened before, because you could be moving forward in the blind. You know, that could be a good book title, Moving Forward in the Blind.
In the blind, wow. I want to see if I can find something right quick as you're talking. There was a quote. I don't even know where that quote is right now, but there was a woman who had a quote about moving forward that I put in the book.
Okay.
Like, once you read that quote, you knew that you had to do some work right here.
Right.
You had to do some work right here, you know, because what happens is if you move forward and you move forward wrong, you know, now you got to come all over. So yeah.
Repeat your steps. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, man. Well, listen, man, I look forward to, you know, possibly working with you in the future, man, you know, any platform, workshops and conferences, because right now I'm in the midst of, as I said, not rebranding, but recalculating and reconsidering how we're going to conduct business over here. And the only thing we can do is work with like-minded people and try to get more leverage out of each other and move forward in that manner.
Oh, Charles, we're no doubt going to work together. Again, with me building my plane as I'm flying it, this effort that I am attempting to do can't just be about a social effort. I need to have brothers like you who have those skill set that, again, as you started out by saying, hey, you know, we're kind of in the same lane, although we're different, right? And so the only way that we're going to do this, man, is that we have to be we have to be collaborative in doing this. I had a conversation with my wife about a year ago, and you know, I'm not a drinker, and but for some reason this thought came to my mind, like the craziest thought. I said, suppose I had an entertaining event to deal with these issues, but I had a liquor sponsor it. And my wife is she's really creative, and you know, she says, well, you know, I don't have a problem with that, but you know, the world is going to have a problem with that if you do that. I said, I said, right, but listen to this, Charles. Listen, so this is how God works. So about 3 weeks later, I'm on a podcast with a young brother, 29 years old, therapist. And we're having this conversation going back and forth. And he starts to tell me about this event that he has, right? That was sponsored by Hennessy.
Okay.
So now I'm like the other people, like Hennessy, you know, like
yeah.
Hennessy, right? And so what happened was he rents a spot down in DuPont Circle.
Okay.
And he gets, let me see if I got the number right. I think it was 4 DJs and 6 therapists. That's what it was. It was 4 DJs and 6 therapists. And he marketed this thing like, you know, he didn't put like therapy on the marketing, but I don't remember exactly how he marketed, but hey, we're going to come out, we're going to talk about some issues or whatever, right? Sponsored by Hennessy, right?
Okay.
People come in, get a drink or whatever, the music is playing, but he said that they provided 6 hours of therapy between the 6 therapists.
Really?
And I'm like, wow. Like, so again, I'm not here to say whether that should be done, but my point is, point is not what we should do. We should have liquor in these type of situations. My point is that we have to be creative in how we're trying to bring these messages across.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we can talk a little more about that offline. But listen, man, it's been a pleasure to have you here today, man. And as we said before, I look forward to working with you down the line. And for those of you that are watching this in real time, thank you for your time and your attention. Please share this information out. And for those of you that are watching the replay, you too, please feel free to share. And any comments, please put your comments in the post. I'm sure Reggie will definitely respond to them, and I will respond to them. And we want to thank you for your time and your attention. That's the most precious commodity that you'll never get back. And you know what I always say, you got to radiate the brain, change the game. See you next time.
I know. Everybody knows.